I grew up in an 8 bedroom farmhouse with my dad until I grew up and moved out. We always had extra room not being used, and because of the age of the house plus all this extra space, there was always an eeriness like someone looming in the shadows. If I had to get a drink in the middle of the night, I looked at the ground the whole time because I was scared of what may be looking back at me from the dark corner rooms and hallways. Even the windows and mirrors were avoided because I wasn't sure what I'd see looking back at me. When I was around 12 years old, I questioned why the room that used to be my nursery was locked from the outside. I didn't think it was weird before then. My dad needed a room for storage, and I figured he just wanted to keep me out. I brought it up to him one day, asking him what's so important in there that he needs to keep me out of, even though I'm not a child anymore. Typical 12-year-old mentality. Turned out I was not entirely correct about the lock. My dad, with a very serious demeanor, sat me down to answer my inquiry. When I was a baby, about 1 or 2 years old, I slept in his nursery room on the second floor, next to my dad's room. This room was painted by my sister, especially for me, with Winnie the Pooh characters and fluffy clouds. The type of thing I think back on and appreciate. The effort and creativity was so admirable. I have a photo of me smiling at Pooh Bear on the wall while we were setting it up, but I'm not the most tech savvy to figure out how to link this photo. Anyway, I was in this nursery in my crib again, right next to my dad's room. The perfect age to be on my own. Every night, though, my dad was woken up by me screaming and crying. He had raised 4 children before me, so he was not making first-time parent mistakes that would otherwise be in question. He thought it was probably the switch to being in my own room rather than being in his room that caused my nightly discomfort. He considered bringing my crib back into his room, but of course the nursery was all ready to go. I had just graduated. For a while I cried until he would come in and check on me, only to find that nothing was wrong and sense of present stresses like temperature, diaper change, hungry, or thirsty, etc. He would stay with me until I fell asleep or kept the light on to make me feel safer, and then return to his room to get some actual rest. One night, after finally having enough of my distress, he decided to camp out on the floor of my nursery to see if he could figure out what was the matter, but mostly to try to sleep through the night. This was the first time anyone slept in there. I was able to doze off now that I wasn't alone. He, on the other hand, was tossing and turning on the hardwood floor, not comfortable enough to sleep. As he laid on the floor, mulling over the situation, boom, 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 he was jolted to his feet by a few massive blows to the floorboards beneath him, centered directly on his back, as if something or someone on the first floor had a battering ram aimed at the ceiling. His first instinct was to rush downstairs and check for intruders. He is a man of logic, brave and ready to defend his family. However, when he got down there, the lights were off, there was no one downstairs, front door locked, windows locked, no sign of forced entry, no one else lived with us. Our closest neighbor was down the road a quarter mile, and why would they break in just to bang on the ceiling? Let alone have it mapped out where my dad would be sleeping in my nursery. And the force of the blows, they weren't normal. After this event, my dad brought my crib back into his room and I was able to sleep without screaming and crying beyond needing a diaper change or something normal. He brought the Bible into the nursery for extra measure and casted out any evil that maybe invited itself in there. He locked up that nursery and only used it for storage after that, and only went in during the daytime. To this day, the old lock is still on the door as if a lock will keep spirits locked in. Short of pretending that experience never happened, he couldn't rationalize it enough to do anything else. We think that the entity was evil and malicious, and when my dad tried to protect me, this only made it pissed off. As I grew up in that house, I had a hard time sleeping in any room on my own. Many nights I ended up rushing to the couch in the living room, turning the TV on and watching Disney until I fell asleep. And even then, I was not comfortable. There was always eyes on me. There were many more unexplained events from the farmhouse, but this was the most direct encounter with evil my dad has ever had. I'm not sure if I shared it to you before, but it was interesting and one of the reasons my wife and I don't go to the drive-thru late anymore. Our McDonald's pre-global pandemic about several years was a 24-hour store. As my wife worked until 3 a.m. and I was on her sleep schedule so she wouldn't be lonely about 4 a.m., we were hungry and decided to grab some food. We ordered and we were waiting at the window when we saw this guy walk up. I'm getting the nastiest feeling coming over me. Dread, despair, terror. I wanted to bolt from my car and run for my life. The guy that just casually walked into the restaurant, and when he passed under the street light, I saw the stain floating behind him. It was freaky, about 6 foot tall, all black except for a large white face. The face had dark sunken eyes and multiple sharp teeth poking out between its lips. It had long arms with clawed hands on the man's shoulder, and below the hips it was just dissipated, so there was no leg. My wife hasn't said anything and usually isn't sensitive to the paranormal, so I didn't expect anything from her. But as the man walked out of the light, the thing vanished from sight, and I heard our car doors locked. I looked at my wife, who was pale, with wide eyes, and she goes, "Tell me you just saw that shit." I confirmed. We just walked. The guy continued his walk into the restaurant. Seeing it was scary. The fact that my wife could was absolutely terrifying. I didn't think to include what my wife said she saw. I refused to say what I saw until she said her piece. I didn't want to influence her, and that's the way she preferred it. So what my wife said was she saw a large black shape with wispy ends below the waist instead of legs. She didn't say she saw the face, but she described the long arms and clawed hands. She said that she started paying attention because she felt nauseous and uneasy when the guy started walking up, and that she was worried about him trying to come up to our car since he was acting like he was severely angry. I'm not sure where the post is, but after all these years, this whole event feels paranormal. I don't know what to make of it, so sharing for any perspective or feedback. When I was 9 months old, my dad drowned in a freak accident. He was helping friends loose a canoe that had got stuck in the river. The undertow snagged him, and no one saw him alive again. Found him a few days later, a couple miles down the river. 20 years later, I'm camping with my girlfriend, at the time, now ex, and my best bro and his girlfriend. It's a beautiful summer night in Pacific Northwest, and it was about 9:30 p.m., so mostly dark. My bro and I hiked a short trip to this rock overhang that had a perfect view of the river. Lit up some cigarettes, sipped on a beer, chatted, and took in the view. 2 minutes in, and this happened. Across the riverbank, I see my dad standing there staring at me. I don't remember knowing him, but I do have an image in my mind from pictures. He looked exactly like my dad at the time he died. I hit my friend and asked him if he's seeing the scene, but he doesn't. Then a sort of spotlight blasts my dad, and he immediately breaks the stair and walks to his left about 20 feet down the river and a little back into the trees. He slowly starts pulling some tools and a rope out of a catchy or a bag. At this point, I'm pale and shaking, my friend worried because I'm staring into the dark and not responding. But wow, what I was seeing. The whole other side of the riverbank was now staged, lit up, and my dad was working on something with his back to me. He finally turns around and has a noose in his hand. He throws it over a tree branch and proceeds to slip it around his neck, saying nothing, and hangs himself to death while staring at me. We had odd experiences for the rest of the night, but nothing like that. I'm now 41 and still haven't integrated this experience. It really messed me up, and I can't help but wonder, did he really drown, or is that what I was told? I had numerous close calls with suicide as a young adult, but never by hanging. And my dad telling me a hidden truth, but that someone or something else, it's been a strange one. Just confirming for all, death certificate, family, and funeral photos all show the same. Death by drowning. If it was my dad communicating, I tend to think he was warning me of things to come. But if it wasn't my dad, well, shiver.